Long before Alamuru became a name whispered with respect across eastern Nigeria, it was nothing more than a cluster of mud huts beside the Oji River, a place where trees grew thick and stubborn, and the earth pulsed with a quiet, ancient hum. Elders used to say that the land itself breathed there, that its soil remembered everything, every footstep, every voice, every secret. But in those early days, the secrets belonged not to the people, but to the river. The Oji River had always been feared, even more than it was revered. Before dawn, it rolled like a serpent under layers of mist, whispering things no one wished to understand. Men were forbidden from going near the water at night, not because of superstition, but because too many who did never returned. Women, however, walked safely by the river's edge. They fetched water in silence, their bare feet pressed into cool soil, and not once had the river swallowed them. It was a mystery people ignored because mysteries were dangerous to question. The balance was simple. The river tolerated women and rejected men. But the turning point came one stormy night nearly a century ago, when an event shifted the very spirit of Alamuru. That night, lightning split the sky in a long white tongue, tearing open clouds like fabric. The thunder was so loud it shook the earth and made goats run wild in their pens. Inside their huts, the villagers huddled with fear tightening their chests. No one dared to look outside. No one except a young girl named Nwanyioma. Nwanyioma had always been different. At only 16, she spoke with the confidence of the oldest elder and walked with a rare calmness. Some claimed she had river water in her veins. Some said she had dreams that didn't belong to humans. But no one denied that the world seemed to pause when she lifted her eyes. That night, compelled by something she could not name, she stepped into the storm. Her mother called after her, voice cracking with panic, but Nwanyioma did not stop. The wind whipped her wrapper around her legs, rain striking her face like stones, but she pressed forward until she reached the riverbank. There she froze. The river was glowing, not brightly, not violently, but with a soft, shifting light like moonlight trapped beneath the surface. As she stared, the water began to rise with unnatural grace, shaping itself into a form, a woman's form, a being made of water and ancient light. Nwanyioma fell to her knees. The being spoke without opening its mouth. The words came like a vibration, humming inside her bones. Daughter of the land, the time has come. Nwanyioma trembled, not from fear, but from an overwhelming sense of recognition, as though she had always known this moment would come. The spirit continued. Men have forgotten the balance of the earth. They chase war, hunger, and pride. The land grows weary, so I choose you. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the spirit's face, calm, ageless, powerful. You will rise as the first Ada of Alamuru. Through you, the women will restore the harmony the men have broken. Nwanyioma shook her head, stunned. Why me? I am only a girl. The spirit bent closer, her watery face rippling. Because you listen, because you are brave enough to look into the storm. Then the river surged forward and touched Nwanyioma's forehead, gently like a blessing. Warmth spread through her body, her breath caught. She felt knowledge pouring into her. Secrets of the land, memories of ancestors, the roar of storms, the soft hum of healing herbs, the power of leadership. It was as though the river gave her centuries of wisdom in a single heartbeat. When she opened her eyes, the spirit was gone. The glow faded. The storm calmed. But Nwanyioma was no longer the same. By morning, elders gathered at the river's edge, gasping at the sight. The storm had uprooted trees, flooded fields, and torn roofs. But the path where Nwanyioma had walked was untouched, a perfect strip of dry sand. She spoke to the people calmly, her voice steady and strong. The river has chosen. From today, women will lead, for they are the keepers of balance. No one questioned her, not even the men. Something in her presence, something ancient, something river-born, silenced every argument. And so the matriarchal era of Alamuru began. The morning after the storm became known as the Night of Choosing, and from that day forward, Alamuru was no longer the same. The people had always respected women, but what Nwanyioma brought was different. a shift so profound it touched everything from leadership to marriage to the way the town understood power. She was crowned Ada Alamuru, the first woman to ever hold such a title. Traditionally, the Ada was a ceremonial elder reserved for the oldest man's daughter, a role limited to blessing brides and advising the chief. But Nwanyioma's coronation rewrote the meaning entirely. She did not stand beside the chief, she replaced him. At first, the men resisted silently. Many clenched their jaws, muttering that the girl was too young, too inexperienced. But when they tried to question her publicly, something unexpected happened. During her first council meeting, a respected hunter named Uba attempted to challenge her authority. "With all due respect, Ada," he began, "we cannot place the safety of our people in the hands of a child. Leadership belongs to those who have tasted life, who—" But he froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened. Sweat bloomed on his forehead. His whole body stiffened like a goat sensing a predator. People turned in confusion until they saw Nwanyioma rise slowly from her stool. Her expression was calm, almost gentle, but her presence carried weight, as though the river itself stood behind her. She placed her palm on the wooden table, and everyone felt the vibration, a faint ripple, like water moving. "Uba," she said quietly, "you fear losing control, not losing safety." The hunter dropped to his knees immediately, not from fear of punishment, but because he had seen something in her eyes, something ancient, something that understood him more deeply than he understood himself. From that day, no man challenged her again. Under Nwanyioma's guidance, the town shifted rapidly. The Council of Elders, once dominated by men, became filled with women. Markets, farms, and community decisions flowed through the wisdom of female voices. The men adapted more slowly, but even they began to admit that the land responded differently under female leadership. For the first time in decades, the harvest doubled. Rivers flooded less. The constant small conflicts between rival families quieted. People whispered that the land itself approved of the changes, that the spirit of the river favored women because women understood balance, whereas men chased dominance. Nwanyioma always said the same thing. Men seek to conquer the world. Women seek to keep it alive. One of the most surprising changes came years later, after Nwanyioma turned 25. Traditionally, women married a single man who became the head of the household. But during a drought, conflict broke out among three brothers who each wanted to marry the same woman, Ebele. Fearing the brothers would fight, Nwanyioma called them before her. "Why must one lose?" she asked. "Why must one woman belong to one man alone?" The eldest brother frowned. "That is how it has always been." "And who told you that must continue?" The brothers stared at her, stunned. Nwanyioma turned to Ebele. "Who among them do you choose?" Ebele looked at all three, shaking. I cannot choose. They each mean something different to me." Instead of scolding her, Nwanyioma smiled. "Then why not honor all three bonds? Why not make your home one of peace, not rivalry?" The men gasped. "You mean she can marry all of us?" The youngest brother asked. "If she agrees, her voice must lead." And Ebele agreed. The marriage was peaceful. The brothers shared responsibilities, and Ebele became one of the wealthiest farmers in Alamuru because she had multiple hands supporting her vision. When the rest of the town saw the success, they reconsidered their assumptions. The system wasn't about romance or desire. It was about balance, unity, and practical strength. Women were believed to have clearer vision and stronger intuition, so giving them multiple partners meant homes were steadier, disputes fewer, and communities stronger. Soon, other women followed the same path. Not all, but many. Polyandry became a respected, structured part of Alamuru society. Nwanyioma's power deepens. As the years passed, Nwanyioma's abilities grew. Sometimes she predicted storms days before they came. Sometimes she sensed sickness in the land before farmers noticed. People said she could speak to the river in her dreams. But Nwanyioma always said, "I am not special. I am simply listening." And the more she listened, the more the town flourished. Alamuru had become the strongest matriarchal town in all of eastern Nigeria. But shadows were beginning to gather beyond the hills. There were neighboring villages, led by men who did not appreciate Alamuru's rise. And they were watching. For years, Alamuru prospered under the Ada's leadership. The markets overflowed with yams and cassava, palm oil trade flourished, and the town's reputation spread far beyond their river valley. Travelers spoke of a land where women guided the people with wisdom, where disputes were solved without bloodshed, and where homes thrived under a balance unseen anywhere else in the region. But prosperity attracts attention, and not all attention seeks peace. Beyond the hills to the west lay Otabo, a neighboring village ruled by warriors, hunters, and chiefs who believed power belonged solely to men. Their customs were the opposite of Alamuru's. In Otabo, women rarely spoke in council, marriages were strictly male-led, and the idea of women marrying more than one man was considered an insult to manhood. At first, Otabo ignored Alamuru, dismissing it as a strange community with foolish traditions. But when traders returned with news of Alamuru's wealth, the abundant harvests, the peaceful streets, the growing influence, jealousy began to fester. Otabo's chief, Okwaraji, was a man known for his pride and quick temper. He had built his rule on strength and feared anything that challenged the idea that men were the natural leaders of the land. Each new story about Alamuru gnawed at him. How can a village prosper under the rule of women? He demanded during a council meeting. They say their Ada carries the blessing of the river, one elder replied nervously. Blessing? Okwaraji spat. There is no blessing there, only trickery. Women cannot rule. It is against the order of things. But deep down, the chief feared something he didn't dare say aloud. What if Alamuru's way worked better than theirs? What if his people began to question him? Fear of losing control is often disguised as anger. One bright morning, when the mist was still crawling above the Oji River, Alamuru woke to the sound of drums. Not their own, but Otabo's. A group of 20 men arrived at the village gate, dressed in red feathers and leather armor, carrying spears that caught the sunlight. They demanded an audience with Ada Nwanyioma. The council gathered immediately, and Nwanyioma took her seat in the meeting hall. The envoys entered, their faces rigid with arrogance. The leader, a tall man with eyes like cold stone, stepped forward. I bring word from Chief Okwaraji of Otabo, he announced loudly. He summons the Ada of Alamuru to explain why she leads men. Such behavior disrupts the natural order. We demand justification. A ripple of shock moved through the room, but Nwanyioma remained still. She studied the envoy quietly before responding. Tell your chief, she said in a voice soft but unshakable, that Alamuru answers to no one but the river and the ancestors. Our land prospers because we respect balance. If your people suffer, look to your own choices, not ours. The envoy frowned. The chief will not accept this answer. That is his burden, not mine. Her calmness unsettled them more than anger ever could. That night, as the moon cast silver ripples across the river, Nwanyioma walked alone to its edge. She knelt, touching the water lightly with her fingertips. Mother of the river, she whispered, darkness moves from the west. What must I do? The water was still for a long moment. Then a single wave rose gently and touched her hand, and a voice, soft as breath, ancient as time, hummed inside her. Do not fear the noise of men. Fear only the silence of women who forget their strength. Nwanyioma closed her eyes. So war is coming? The river did not answer with words, but the water pulsed beneath her touch. A quiet warning. She understood. By morning, she gathered the women elders. Otabo grows restless, she said. Their chief is threatened. Envy has turned their eyes toward us. But we will not meet anger with anger. The elders nodded. What shall we do? Asked Elder Ifeoma, an herbalist known throughout the region. We strengthen ourselves, Nwanyioma replied, not with weapons, but with readiness. Under her instruction, women trained in defensive spear and staff techniques, men supported agriculture and built stronger shelters, elders taught conflict resolution rituals, children learned the history of the river and the strength of unity. But the most important preparation was spiritual. Nwanyioma led a cleansing ritual at the riverbank, where women dipped their hands in the water and prayed for clarity, protection, and courage. The river glowed faintly, a sign the ancestors were listening. When Chief Okwaraji heard the envoy's report, he became furious. She refused my summons, he roared. A woman refuses a chief? He slammed his fist onto the ground. This cannot stand. Alamuru challenges our authority. If we allow this, our own women will begin to question us. Fear drove his next words. We must act before their ways infect the region. The council fell silent. Something dangerous was beginning to take shape. A plan that would soon test everything Alamuru believed in. The tensions between Alamuru and Otabo simmered like an iron pot left on glowing coals, quiet on the outside, but boiling within. Weeks passed after the envoy's visit, and though no attack came, the air in Alamuru felt heavier, as if the wind itself was waiting for something to break. Ada Nwanyioma sensed it long before the others did. She walked through the village with calm steps, but her eyes were always observing, the way the leaves trembled even without wind, the restless sleep of children, the unusual silence of the river. These were signs the land whispered when danger was near. Yet she kept her people steady. Fear, she believed, could destroy a town faster than any spear. But Otabo was not quiet. Chief Okwaraji spent every night sharpening his plans. Though he knew the river favored women in Alamuru, he convinced himself that their power came from manipulation, not blessing. He gathered his strongest warriors and ordered them to prepare for a stealth attack. We strike at night, he said, before they know we are upon them. But Chief, one warrior dared to ask, what if the river protects them? Okwaraji's expression hardened. Rivers do not fight, men do. But he was wrong. The attack came on a moonless night, when the sky was dark as freshly tilled soil. A group of Otabo warriors crept toward Alamuru's northern border, silent as hunters stalking antelope. Their feet padded across the ground, careful to avoid snapping twigs or rustling leaves. But Alamuru was not unguarded. Women trained by Nwanyioma stood watch in quiet shifts, armed, disciplined, patient. One such guard, a young woman named Chibundo, heard something unusual, the faint hiss of grass bending beneath feet. Too soft for animals, too many to be chance. Her grip tightened on her staff. She whistled softly, a signal. 3 other guards emerged, shadows among shadows. Chibundo raised her chin toward the darkness. Show yourselves. For a moment, silence. Then, movement. Otabo warriors burst forward, thinking they had the advantage. They did not. The women fought not with brute strength, but with precision. Spear shafts deflected blows, staffs swept legs, steps rotated with rhythm learned from watching the river's currents. Within moments, the first wave of attackers was disarmed. One warrior, gasping on the ground, stared at them in disbelief. How do women fight like this? Chibundo answered simply, we fight to protect, not to conquer. The remaining warriors fled back toward Otabo, humiliated. Alamuru had won the first shadow battle. When the warriors returned battered and empty-handed, Chief Okwaraji's fury shook the walls of his hut. You were defeated by women, he thundered. They were skilled, Chief, a warrior replied. Disciplined. It is as if they knew we were coming. Okwaraji slammed his fist into the ground. No more stealth. We attack openly. But an elder stepped forward cautiously. Chief, the river favors them. Their Ada is said to speak with the water. If we fight blindly, the spirits may... The spirits obey men, Okwaraji snapped, and I will not lose to a girl with river tales. But not everyone in Otabo agreed. Some younger men whispered among themselves. What if the spirits do favor them? What if their way is not weakness, but strength? What if... Okwaraji silenced these voices with intimidation, but doubt spread like cracks through clay. In Alamuru, Nwanyioma sensed the next attack long before any scout confirmed it. She returned to the river, kneeling as she had many times before. The water stirred. You have done well, daughter, the spirit's voice hummed. But the men of Otabo do not understand balance. They mistake violence for strength. How do I protect my people without war? Nwanyioma asked softly. The river glowed faintly. By remembering who you are, by using the power they do not expect. What power is that? She whispered. The water rippled, swirling around her hands. Wisdom, unity, and the courage to face them with truth, not fear. Nwanyioma bowed her head. So I must confront Okwaraji. The river grew still, an answer without words. She rose with determination. The time had come to meet the chief who hated what he could not understand. That evening she gathered the elders. Otabo will attack openly, she said. Their chief believes domination is strength. What do we do? Asked Elder Afioma. We meet them, not with bloodshed, but with a message. The river stands with us, but we cannot hide behind its blessing. We must show them why women lead in Alamuru. The council listened. Some were afraid, some were angry, but all trusted the Ada. We will follow you, they said together. Nwanyioma nodded. Then prepare. At dawn I will walk to the border. Okwaraji must see that a woman does not tremble before him. And so the quiet before the storm ended. The true battle, not of weapons but of wills, which was about to begin. Nwanyioma nodded. Then prepare. At dawn I will walk to the border. Okwaraji must see that a woman does not tremble before him. And so the quiet before the storm ended. The true battle, not of weapons but of wills, was about to begin. Dawn arrived with a softness that felt almost deceptive, as if nature wished to hide the storm that was about to unfold. A pale gold glow stretched across the sky, brushing the tops of palm trees and casting thin shadows along the earth. But despite the beauty of the morning, the air was tight with anticipation. Everyone felt it, from the elders who tightened their wrappers to the children peering anxiously from windows. Ada Nwanyioma stood at the center of Alamuru, dressed in a white wrapper symbolizing truth and purity. Around her arms were lines painted with river clay, each marking the blessings of the ancestors. Her staff, carved from the sacred Iroko tree, rested lightly in her hand. Are you certain you wish to go alone? Elder Ifeoma asked. Nwanyioma offered a small smile. Strength does not always come from numbers. Sometimes one voice is enough to silence a crowd. Behind her, women warriors stood ready, though she had commanded them not to follow unless she signaled. They trusted her completely but found it difficult to let their Ada walk into danger. Yet they obeyed. In Alamuru, obedience was not forced. It was earned. With calm steps, Nwanyioma walked toward the border path, her staff tapping gently against the earth. The closer she got, the heavier the atmosphere felt. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. At the ridge where Alamuru's soil met Otabo's territory, she stopped and lifted her head. They were already there. A line of Otabo warriors stretched across the border, shields glinting, spears poised. Their red feather headdresses swayed in the morning wind, and their faces were smeared with war paint meant to intimidate. Behind them stood Chief Okwaraji himself, broader and taller than most, with a chest like a carved stone wall and eyes that burned with indignation. So, Okwaraji boomed, stepping forward. The famous Ada comes to face me. Nwanyioma kept her voice steady. I come to speak, not to fight. But we came to fight, Okwaraji snapped. Your ways insult the dignity of men. You steal authority that does not belong to you. She raised an eyebrow. Does authority belong to you then? It belongs to men, he shouted. It always has. Nwanyioma touched her staff to the ground. Then look around you. Does the land flourish under the rule of men in Otabo? Are your harvests plentiful? Are your people content? Okwaraji stiffened. The truth stung like fire. A few of his warriors shifted uncomfortably. She continued. You fear a world where women lead, not because we are weak, but because we remove the need to rule by fear. The murmurs grew louder among the Otabo men. They were listening. Okwaraji stepped closer, veins tightening along his neck. You think your river magic makes you wise? You think your soft words can weaken warriors? It is not softness, Nwanyioma replied. It is clarity. A leader must listen. You do not listen. Not to the land, not to your people. His face darkened. I listen to strength. No, she said. You listen only to your pride. Just then the wind changed direction, sweeping across the border. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet, a gentle warning felt by all. Warriors on both sides glanced around uneasily. Nwanyioma lifted her staff. If you doubt that the river stands with us, then let the land decide. Okwaraji scoffed. And how will soil decide leadership? Does mud speak now? But before his laughter faded, a faint rumble echoed through the valley. The Oji River, barely visible in the distance, shimmered as if touched by invisible hands. A narrow stream of water broke away, flowing toward them unnaturally, twisting through grass and stones without losing force. The Otabo warriors stepped back in shock. The water circled Nwanyoma's feet and then rose, forming a thin spiral around her staff, glowing softly in the sunlight. Okwaraji staggered backward. What? What trick is this? There is no trick, Nwanyoma said. The river responds to balance and truth, not to domination. The warriors muttered in fear. Some whispered, "Is she chosen?" Others questioned whether Okwaraji had led them into a war they couldn't win. Okwaraji, refusing to be humbled, lifted his spear. "This is witchcraft," he roared. "I will not bow." The river's glow dimmed, and Nwanyioma spoke the words that sealed his fate. "No one asked you to bow, only to see." Before Okwaraji could strike, two Otabo elders stepped forward. Men old enough to remember when Otabo's land prospered before greed hardened their chief's heart. "Chief Okwaraji," one said, "the spirits do not favor your anger. We have lost crops, lost peace. Perhaps we have lost our way." Another added, "Maybe leadership should not be about strength alone." Their courage rippled through the warriors. Doubt spread. Hearts opened. Okwaraji trembled with rage. "You betray me?" "We choose truth," they replied. The border fell silent. For the first time, Okwaraji realized he was losing not to Nwanyioma, but to the wisdom of his own people. The border was silent in a way that felt almost sacred. Warriors who had come prepared for battle now stood still, caught between fear, awe, and the unfamiliar feeling of questioning everything they had been taught. The river's spiral around Nwanyioma's staff slowly dissolved back into the earth, leaving behind a shimmering trail like the fading memory of a dream. Okwaraji's chest heaved. Though he was surrounded by his own warriors, he looked strangely alone, a man standing on the edge of losing not just a war, but the world as he understood it. "You do not need to kneel to me," Nwanyioma said softly, her voice carrying farther than shouting ever could. "But you must kneel to truth. The land does not respond to pride." Several Otabo men bowed their heads, ashamed. One warrior, younger than the rest, stepped forward. His spear trembled in his hand. "Chief," he said quietly, "why do we fight women who have done nothing to us? Their land prospers. We suffer. Why must we cling to ways that no longer serve us?" Okwaraji turned on him with blazing fury. "You dare question me?" But the young warrior did not step back. "I dare question a future where my sons must live in hunger because my chief fears women." A murmur of agreement swept through the Otabo ranks. Men who once marched proudly beside Okwaraji now stared at him with doubt clouding their eyes. Nwanyioma stepped closer, but only by a single measured pace, a gesture that showed no fear, only clarity. "Okwaraji," she said, "the spirits are not against you. You have simply forgotten something essential." "And what is that?" he snapped. "That leadership is service, not ownership." Her words struck him with the force of a hammer. He staggered back as if physically pushed. For a heartbeat, his expression changed. The anger flickered, revealing something deeper. Exhaustion, confusion, and a grief he never allowed himself to acknowledge. But pride is a stubborn flame. It rarely dies quietly. "You speak beautifully," he said coldly, "but beauty cannot rule men." "Beauty does not rule Alamuru," Nwanyioma replied. "Wisdom does." Just then, a gust of wind rushed from the east, bending the tall grasses and carrying with it the scent of the river. The earth vibrated, not violently, but deeply, like a drumbeat from beneath the soil. Otabo men stumbled, grabbing their spears to steady themselves. The river's surface, far in the distance, glittered with silver light. A sign, a warning, a final message. Nwanyioma stood firm, her eyes reflecting the glow like two small moons. "You see," she said, "the land speaks. It asks you to choose peace." But Okwaraji was trembling, torn between fear of the spirits and fear of losing control. For a moment it seemed he might surrender to wisdom. Then his pride leapt up one final time. With a roar, he raised his spear and charged. Gasps erupted from both sides, but Nwanyioma did not move. She merely lifted her staff and touched its end gently to the earth. The ground between them split open, not wide, not dangerously, but with a sharp crack that halted Okwaraji mid-step. His spear froze in the air. A single line of earth separated them like a boundary drawn by the spirits themselves. He stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. Enough! Enough! He dropped his spear. The Otabo warriors lowered theirs in unison. Even the wind stilled, as though the land waited for his next breath. Defeated, not by force but by truth, Okwaraji sank to his knees. He covered his face with trembling hands. "What do I do now?" he whispered. "How does a man lead when his strength is no longer enough?" Nwanyioma approached him slowly, respectfully. "By learning a new strength," she said, "the strength to listen." She extended her hand toward him, not to command, but to offer, and for the first time in his life, Okwaraji accepted guidance from a woman. His hand trembled as he placed it in hers. The warriors of Otabo bowed their heads. The land exhaled. The war had ended before it began. In the days that followed, Otabo sent envoys not to threaten, but to learn. Nwanyioma welcomed them, teaching them how balance, not dominance, strengthened a community. Some Otabo women stepped into leadership for the first time. Polyandry did not become their practice immediately, but the idea no longer seemed impossible. Trade flourished between the towns. Peace settled over the land like gentle mist, and the legend of Ada Nwanyioma grew. Years later, when Nwanyioma passed her title to the next chosen Ada, the river glowed once more, acknowledging the continuity of balance. Her leadership became the foundation of a society where women were entrusted with guiding the land, where men worked beside them instead of against them, and where homes could be formed not through ownership but through harmony. Alamuru became a symbol across the region, proof that power does not need to crush to be real, that leadership does not need to conquer to be strong. And whenever the river shimmered at dusk, the people knew. The spirit still watched, the balance still held, and the Ada's wisdom lived on.